thank you everybody for registering for the first of our Thought Leadership in 15 minute sessions. I'm Helen Trudgeon, I'm Head of Marketing and Business Development for Meridian West. And this is the first in a short series of masterclasses in thought leadership. We're doing them in 15 minutes really to give you some bite-sized snapshots without cutting too much into your day, but hopefully the really good juicy topics around thought leadership. Next week we'll be going on to look at advanced research techniques, so I hope you'll be able to sign up for those ones as well, and I will be sending you details of that. For those of you who don't know Meridian West, we are a research consultancy. We focus on thought leadership, client insight and feedback programs and market strategies for professional services, financial services and the B2B sector more widely. Now I'll hand over to Matt Baldwin, who is chairing the session for us today. Matt is Managing Director of Coast Communications, a PR and journalist agency. Matt, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen, and good afternoon, everybody. In this 15-minute masterclass, we're going to guide you through what makes a successful thought leadership campaign. And we brought together a standout team of experts who have a long track record of delivering some of the best campaigns that the professional services space has seen. And this afternoon, we're going to touch on three quite broad themes. First is how to choose the right campaign theme. Secondly, some practical tips on campaign planning. And then the one that I'm particularly looking forward to is on how do you engage internal audiences when we're all out of the office. The masterclass, it's going to run for 15 minutes and then a period of questions afterwards for a further 15 minutes. So if you want to raise questions, please use the conversation tab and we'll pick up those afterwards. But before we kick off, I would like to introduce our speakers. Sasha, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Sasha Rodrigues. I'm a business development manager for the life sciences sector at Pinson Masons.
Thank you. Suzanne.
Yes, hi everybody, Suzanne Snowden. I'm a director of Message Consulting Limited, and I'm working with clients who want to create great thought leadership.
And Alastair.
Hi everyone, I'm Alastair Beddow, Managing Director at Meridian West.
Thank you very much. Now, our first question, and I'm going to put this one to Alastair. As Helen alluded to earlier, Meridian West have been behind a large number of thought leadership campaigns across the law, accountancy, real estate and consulting markets, and probably some others I've left out there. And Alastair, I think we'd be really interested on your thoughts on what campaign themes you're seeing at Meridian West at the moment. And how should a firm at this particular point in time go about choosing the right themes for a thought leadership campaign?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Matt. Well, a big question, but I think a short answer. I think I had a look back at all of the campaigns that we've been working on, certainly this year, and unsurprisingly, COVID features very heavily. I think there's kind of two big ways that COVID has really featured in terms of thought leadership over the last 6 to 9 months. The first is around from a kind of business resilience and recovery aspect. So particularly things like supply chain disruption. How do you get over simply the hurdles of doing business in this pandemic world? There's been a lot of focus on that. How have organizations learned the lessons of the pandemic? I think the second big theme is around kind of future looking transformation. So what will the pandemic mean for the future in the way that different industry sectors operate? And we've been working with clients looking at things like the banking industry, the insurance industry, healthcare. What does COVID mean for some of the long-term trends in terms of transformation, operational change? But I think quite interestingly, and I think this will be a big trend for next year, what does it mean to try and transform your operations at a time when budgets and a squeeze, we're possibly going to a prolonged period of recession? So how do you manage that cost pressure whilst also transforming your organization? Three other quick things, which I think themes that we've seen bubbling under the surface for the last 12, 18 months that I think will be really important going into 2021. The first of those is around the purpose-led organization. So a lot around ESG, organizational purpose, responsible capitalism, responsible organizations. I think that will continue to be a really big theme, particularly in the light of the pandemic. I think the second one is around digital data analytics. Again, ties into that transformation narrative, but some bigger picture themes around the future of work, connected cities, for example. And then the third thing, I think, is what does growth look like in the kind of 2021 and beyond, particularly when the economic environment is going to be really challenging. And I think we're going to see, organizations thinking about how do they tap into new customer trends and new global trade patterns, post-Brexit. And if Trump wins today, what does that mean for relations with China and all the rest of it? That will, I think, come back onto the agenda in a big way. So lots of themes kind of both related to the pandemic, but coming out of that, looking forward into 2021.
Alastair, thank you for that. Suzanne, maybe a point maybe you'd like to pick up on is how do firms find the white space around when picking their own theme? Is how do they find that white space and just so they're not echoing what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things in my 4 points for planning is competitors. So I think a good starting point is to look at what your competitors are saying. It's never been easy to really rise above the noise, particularly in professional services marketing, but now more acutely than ever, it's really difficult. So I would say it's a good time to do a quick competitive content review and see how their messages are landing and how that might inform what themes you pick. The other thing that's really tricky at the moment is, as Alastair mentioned, is picking a theme that's sympathetic but positive. And, it's really tricky now to help your teams get back to business in an old-fashioned way, because strictly business type topics, the messaging could be perceived as a bit insensitive, deals, operational effectiveness, outsourcing, etc. So it's all about striking a good balance for next year.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And once you have the right theme, Suzanne, I mean, that is just the starting point. I mean, the real hard work follows really on from there. What advice could you give to those that are in the planning stages of campaigns at the moment, and particularly when so many of us are still working from home? What are the key things that we need to consider at the moment?
Yeah, having a plan and sticking to it is pretty much essential for producing anything of value. And I feel at the moment that we're all finding it really harder than ever to achieve that, particularly sticking to it. If you've got a deadline that you want to launch something, and we all know that that's just going to slip at the moment. But I think the four tips I would offer are: first, make your strategy your starting point for anything you're doing. Why are you doing it? How does your project support your firm's overall vision, your purpose? And how, to your question, how does this more difficult now? Well, I think that's kind of obvious. I've spoken to a lot of clients. Their budgets aren't approved yet. Their vision is less clear than it ever has been. All the strategy initiatives, new initiatives have been parked in favor of keeping the business liquid, keeping staff, keeping clients safe. So the messages have been more tactical and more ad hoc. So it's not a bad thing, I think, right now to pivot quickly. However, it makes it really hard to plan for the next 12 months. So that second point is competitors, which I've already mentioned. What are your competitors saying? And that helps you to find that white space that you might be looking for. Everyone's curating their content in COVID-19 portals at the moment, but it's all about, can you find a breakaway topic to help position you more distinctively? The third thing is your audience. Who is your audience? Is it everyone? Is it your clients that are in crisis? Is it our clients that are striding ahead? So the virus has been the catalyst for some major structural changes in all these markets, some which might not go back. And these will eventually lead to the end of some sectors and maybe the birth of new ones. So who are you trying to reach? The winners or the losers? Actually, arguably, the losers might be the ones that need your advice the most. So perhaps maybe thinking about your segmentation a little differently, based on maybe clients that have proximity with customers versus clients that don't. And then finally, what's your timeline from creation to release? And this is the really hard thing. How are you going to reach that deadline? What inputs do you need? How are you going to develop the evidence to support your review? Are you doing research, polls, interviews? How are you going to get these done in COVID? So yeah, considering that we thought this was a 3 to 6 month thing and nature doesn't plan quarterly, we're definitely going to have an unsettled year again in 2021. Finally, I think I should stop here, but who do you need to engage internally, which I'll pass back because I know you're going to talk about that next.
Yeah. Thank you, Suzanne. I think the summary is actually a lot of the planning is exactly what would have been prior to COVID as well. Yeah. It's just an added further dimension. Sasha, Pinson Masons are having a look at. They've got a fantastic campaign running, the Innovation in Healthcare campaign, which I've been keeping a close eye on, and I think it's a what I quite like about it, it's a great example of a campaign that perhaps started before COVID, but has actually worked well both with your internal and external audiences. And I just wonder, a question in two parts. I think firstly, it'd be really interesting if you could share just a little bit behind the campaign and the impact it's had. But also, I think the bit that I think we're probably most anxious to hear about is how do you engage with those internal audiences to make a campaign like this a success?
No, absolutely. I think for me, internal engagement from audiences is probably one of the most important parts of campaign planning, because there's been so many situations where I've worked on a project, done all this work in developing content, it lands on a partner's desk, and then it doesn't actually go anywhere. And as a business development and marketing professional, that's the most frustrating thing that can happen. So getting that internal buy-in, both at the outset of a project, then also actually throughout a project, I think is really key and something that maybe we forget about a little bit. So the campaign that we're running at the moment, as I said, I've managed the business development for the life sciences sector. So what we're looking at is how to incentivize innovation within the sector, specifically how to use the law and legal frameworks to do so. So what we've done is we've separated that kind of umbrella topic out into a number of different sub areas, each of which we have specialists within. So things like looking at how the IP and patent system is fit for purpose and whether that can be used to help spur the innovation that both the industry but also patients, as we're seeing now, really demand. So what we've done is for each of those different topic areas, we've undertaken a series of interviews with clients, commissioned industry surveys, and have also done internal interviews. And then off the back of that, we're producing a series of in-depth articles, talking heads videos, case studies, and then hopefully culminating in a report that our clients, but also our public policy team, can then take to regulators and government to talk to them about what needs to change. And I think kind of coming back to that internal stakeholder piece, two of the things I think we did quite well and that have really worked with the engagement was hosting an ideas lab at the outset, and then throughout the project, hosting a series of kind of internal discussion groups. So with the ideas lab, what we did, and Meridian West are our partner on this project, so Meridian West came in and we got all of our senior stakeholders together in one room, and this was pre-pandemic, so it could be in an actual room. So that was both our head of the sector, but also the jurisdiction leads and our service line leads. And Meridian West essentially led a discussion on what they were seeing in their market, what they were talking to clients about, and actually what they wanted to achieve off the back of the project. And I think that engagement at the outset really helped ensure that they were supportive of the project, and then that could cascade down to the rest of the team as well. I think if they're involved in the idea generation, it's just so helpful in ensuring that engagement throughout. And then in terms of how we maintained engagement, for each of the areas that I mentioned before, we identified our key specialists for that area, and we held a series of discussion interviews. So for example, taking IP and patents as an example again, we got all of our IP and patent specialists onto one call, and Meridian West conducted an interview with the team, and they asked them about, what they saw as the issues, what they saw that was happening at the moment, what were the barriers, what did they want to hear from clients. And then off the back of that, we built the content, we built the interview discussion guides for clients, we built the industry surveys. So they were really involved in the creation of the project itself. And not only did that help with engagement, but it really helped give them the confidence to be able to speak to clients about the project as well, because they had been involved in it, they knew about it, and it just really helped in the engagement and talking part.
And I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's that confidence point with Fiona and colleagues at this particular point in time, that is so critical, because they're working in an environment that is perhaps quite different to what they're used to, and it's giving them the confidence to have the conversations with clients that you as business development teams would like. Do you know, that's our 15 minutes up. I'm astonished we've actually managed to keep it to those 15 minutes. So thank you, Sasha, Suzanne, Alastair,